Hey guys, welcome to the calendar planning tutorial. The goal of this tutorial is to assist you in understanding how to map your calendar and to show you how to unpack your TEKS for the calendar. For this tutorial, you will need the following resources. You'll need your unpacked TEKS, your blueprint, your C-scope, scope and sequence document, your calendar, and my example calendar. Remember, it's important to give feedback as I go through this tutorial. Remember, we want to hear your ideas and we want to improve the unpacking process. So part one of your planning, remember you will map out your calendar. You're going to be giving direction to your team and to your class because your map or your calendar tells you exactly where you want to go. The two documents you will need for this part will be the scope and sequence and the district calendar. The district calendar tells you all holidays, testing days, and all of your non-teaching days. Your scope and sequence tells you all of the TEKS that need to be taught during the unit. So you'll look at the district calendar and mark out the non-teaching days on your calendar. For example, we know that September the 2nd is a holiday, Labor Day. So we would mark that off. And if you're giving your own class test, that would take the whole class period, you would mark that day off as well. For example, if I want to give a test for the third week of school, September 21st, then I would mark that off as a non-teaching day. After marking off all the days, that's when I'll figure out how many teaching days I have. Next, I want you to look at your scope and sequence. During the first unit, we are responsible for teaching our students to analyze fiction as well as write fiction. And we are responsible for teaching them nonfiction and writing a critique of a nonfiction piece. During Unit 2 of the first 9 weeks, we will teach our students how to analyze poetry and write poetry. All of this is in the first 9 weeks. So our next step is to simply unpack. So the way that this is going to work, you're going to first look at the TEK. Remember, the state of Texas gives us a list of all the TEKs for your content on the TEA website. That document was given to you at the summer planning. This is TEK 2B. It's an ELA 2 TEK. It says that I'm going to teach students to analyze archetypes in mythic, traditional, and classical literature. Now, we know that analyze is at the higher level of Bloom's, so it's possible that most of our students will not be able to start at this cognitive level. We will have to scaffold them up to the level of the verb in the TEK. So we have to figure out what cognitive level we need to start with by assessing their prior knowledge. For example, you may want to start them with understand. And then maybe they'll explain, and then finally analyze. So this could be done in 1 lesson or in 3 lessons. It depends on your students. If it's done in one lesson, these are the sub-objectives, and this is the main objective. Or maybe your students need you to take it a little slower, and this is actually day 1, and this is day 2, and this is day 3. Remember, how you scaffold depends on the needs of your students. The next important thing is to understand that Figure 19b is very crucial to your unpacking. Figure 19b says students will make complex inferences about the text and use textual evidence to support their understanding. This TEK focuses on inferencing and SAQ. Most questions on our district tests and ELC are double-coded. So what this means is that questions are going to be about TEK 2b and Figure 19b. This is why Figure 19b shows up so much when we're analyzing data. So we want students to be able to analyze archetypes, and we want them to be able to make inferences about them and support their inferences with textual evidence. So it's important, as you see on your Unpacked TEK document that I gave you this summer, that your kids are scaffolded up to the TEK of analyzing and making inferences about the concepts and writing an SAQ, which is a response to the reading. And remember, I did all of this work for you on your 9 weeks Unpacked TEK document. The other document you have to look at is the blueprint, and mine is upside down or sideways. These are the TEKs that students have historically performed poorly on. And because they perform poorly, these are the ones that will be assessed on the 9 weeks test. So when you're trying to figure out where to start, this is a good place to start out of all of these TEKs. But remember, you have to teach all of these as well. Another strategy that I use is called the deeper reading cycle whenever I'm building a unit. This cycle can be used when teaching any piece of reading or even a novel. This is the cycle that I personally like the most. I first have my students to do a first read, and during this first read, they focus in on vocabulary. Then they do a second read, and they analyze the text. I'm taking them back to the text, but they aren't reading the whole text again. They're just reading with a focus. Now, the focus can be any of the TEKs that are on the scope and sequence document, or maybe you want to start with the difficult ones on the blueprint. Then I have them respond to the text in writing and support their understanding with text evidence. We know that's SAQ. At this point, they have their own piece of writing that they can revise and edit. So then I teach them grammar and conventions and have them go back to their own writing or a peer's writing to practice revising and editing. And remember, revising and editing, that's what most people exclude from their lessons. This is an example of what my plan looks like. Day 1, they're looking at vocabulary. TEK 1B, it's on the blueprint, and I know students struggle with it. In my lesson, I'm going to explain context clues, and I'm going to model how to analyze context to figure out the meaning of the unknown words. So now when they're reading for the first time, they're going to identify words that are unfamiliar and analyze the context to figure out the meaning. You can give them a graphic organizer as they read, or maybe have your kids keep a double-entry journal. The next day, I'm going to take my kids back to the text and focus them in on TEK 5A. I'm going to model identifying plot and analyzing plot, and then I'm going to want them to analyze the plot of the story that they read, so you're going to be taken back to the text. The next day, they're going to respond to the text, and they're going to write an SAQ. This will let me know if they really understood what they read. Then I must teach restrictive and non-restrictive clauses. And yes, I'm going to use those academic terms because that's what's used on the test. And then maybe I'll have them revise and edit their work. This is the example that I gave you guys. This is the process that I personally go through. But remember, you can format your lesson cycles or your chunks the way that you would like them. So next, how do we chunk the actual lessons? This is important when you start to think about assigning lessons. For example, these 3 lessons pertain to reading, so I may want to chunk them together. I can assign them to group 1. And then these lessons pertain to writing, so I will assign them to group 2. Or I may say that I want to chunk these 3 together and then these 2 together. It just depends on your team. Okay, so this is ELA 2. We have Donovan, we have Kelly, we have Kayla, we have Devon, we have Smith, and we have McDonald. This could be group 1, this could be group 2. So I would look back at these lessons and I would chunk based on the 2 groups. And I would figure out who's presenting on what day and who's assigned to model on what day. Who's going to chunk, what lessons are going to be chunking, who's going to model. So today you're going to focus on the first week of school. Tomorrow, group 1 should be working on a chunk of lessons, and then group 2 should be working on a chunk of lessons, so that the first day of school we're modeling lessons and we're collaborating on the next set. So first day they're going to possibly be modeling this day, second day maybe this day, third day this day, so that you're a week ahead. And as we continue to model lessons, we'll get even further ahead. Alright guys, that's the end. Thank you for watching my homemade video. Tell me what you like, what you wonder, and a good next step so we can make this protocol for unpacking the best protocol possible. Thank you very much.